Well, hello, Sadie. I just want to say thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah,
This is
absolutely.
I'm very, very excited to be able to tell your story. And I think the most interesting thing is how we met.
I would agree. Yeah.
So, you have gotten me to do two things
Mhm.
that nobody else in the world has ever been able to do.
Right.
So, I was actually at the podcast studio one day and I got a call on my phone. It was an unknown number, which generally I don't answer. But for some reason, I was like, I think I need to answer this. This might be important. And I answered,
Mhm.
and it was you. And I didn't know you at the time. And I'm so grateful that I know you now. But there was just something about like your presence, your energy. I don't even know how.
That's so nice.
Well, I've never, people call it's cold calling,
It
right?
is, yes.
And the most common response is like, as soon as you figure out it's somebody cold calling, you're like, ah, like get off the phone. Why are you bothering me?
Yep.
But there was something about, I don't know, your approach or something that you said that I was like, I should know this person. I feel like I already do. And we just
Oh.
were off and running and had a great conversation. So it was the first thing. I've never responded to a cold call. And then the second thing was you have been able to help me find clothes that fit well, which has never happened to me before either.
It's hard. I hear that. But I'm happy to hear that as well.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's nice to hear in general that I seemed personable over the phone because I think that's always my worry. Because cold calling is hard.
Yeah.
To act like a person. And I always try to just kind of be a little bit more myself rather than going by a script. And I felt like that's always worked the best. So I'm glad that that's being translated into actual real life.
Well, and so in just the short time that I've known you, like one of the first thoughts I had was, oh man, I would love for you to be on the podcast and tell your story a little bit because it's really just amazing what you do and how you help people look and feel their best. But your backstory on how you got there is incredible. Could you just run us through a little bit, like maybe how you got into fashion?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was kind of a little bit of a wild start. I've always been really creative in general, but I grew up with a single mom. So we had the things that we needed, but anything above that was not really high up on the priority list. And so it was a lot of the basics. I did a lot of hand-me-downs from either my mom or my sister, which there's nothing wrong with that at all. But the other thing is maybe once a year we'd have like $100 budget, and then we'd go and pick out a couple things, but obviously $100 doesn't get you much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it went on for a really long time, and kids are not the kindest, so they end up making fun of you a little bit and you don't feel your best. And so I just honestly got frustrated, and I started to kind of reimagine some of the pieces that I had. I started taking them apart, seeing how they worked, and it was almost like it was like a machine kind of. um, and once I knew that, I started altering my own things to make them fit better to my body type. And then from there, I decided, well, if I know how it works, why can't I make something from scratch? So I started making my own patterns. Um, and then once my family kind of saw that this was like a real thing, they actually banded together and they bought me a sewing machine for my birthday, which I think was the most extravagant gift I'd ever gotten, but also the most meaningful, because it kind of started my journey. And then I went from being made fun of every day to all of a sudden, my senior year of high school, I got voted best dress, and people were asking me to make my dresses for them. And so I definitely had a pivot in my social experience due to that.
Yeah, no, that's remarkable. And I think, I mean, it doesn't matter. You could give me a sewing machine, you could give me material and all the time in the world, and I would never be able to have an eye for that kind of thing. Like, I struggle with, I don't know what I really look like or what I should wear or how it fits and that kind of thing.
Hmm.
So it's incredible. It's you had natural talent as well,
Thank you.
which is very, very interesting. So that was high school,
Hmm.
graduated best dressed in your class. Amazing. I mean, not I don't know anybody else that can say that. That's incredible.
Thank you.
And then how did it turn into a career for you?
Yeah, so I wasn't in the financial position to be able to go to college right away. So I worked at a shoe store locally in Cherry Creek for about a year, and I just wasn't super pushy. So I decided that maybe that wasn't the best fit. And then I actually started working when I was like 17, 18 at a sushi restaurant. And within the first year, I was running their host stand. I ran that for about 5 years with a team behind me. Then I graduated to serving and bartending and worked there for about 11 years. The first five, I definitely messed around like any kid in their early 20s. But then I kind of had a moment where I was like, okay, I need to do something else. So I was kind of sitting in front of my apartment in my car, and I was talking to my mom and just like losing my mind because I kind of thought that either I'd have to be in the service industry for the rest of my life or I'd have to get a desk job, which both of those were just absolute nightmares for me. Um, and it was like I was inconsolable, which is not normal because I'm not a big crier. So my mom was on the other end being like, "Oh my God, what's happening?" um, but then I ended up hanging up and I sat there for like, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 hours. Like it was nuts. Just kind of coming to term with my reality. And I hate to say it, but I kind of reserved myself to that where I was like, all right, this is what your life is now. And then I woke up in the middle of the night and I had just the craziest thought where if you think about in the world, a lot of men just get whatever degree they want and then they make it work for them. And it works for them. You can have anything. And it's shocking to hear some backstories. And I thought to myself, well, I'm just as intelligent and resilient and tenacious. So why can't that be me? Um, so next week I was enrolled at MSU and then I graduated with a bachelor's in global business and a minor at history, or cum laude, sorry. Um, and then I kind of went off. Um, After that, it was kind of a funny experience because with the company that I work at, my dad actually has and is still currently works there or he has been for I think 34, 35 years. And I had no idea what he did. So he last year was diagnosed with bone cancer, and he's okay now, but it was a little rocky.
Yeah.
But he came to a point where he couldn't drive himself places. And, he's a proud guy. So he asked me if I wanted to maybe like tag along on a couple of things, but he needed someone to drive him. So I went there, didn't realize what was going on, and then he brings me up to this appointment and he starts showing these fabrics and everything like that and starts asking my opinion and I'm like, "Well, I'm just the driver and the daughter. What are we doing here?" And then I got back in the car and I looked at him and I said, "Well, did you think you wanted to tell me what you did?" And he has this very quiet way about him and he just kind of laughed and he goes, "Well, I didn't want to push you." And I kind of just looked at him and I said, "Well, do you think I could do this?" And he goes, "Oh, yeah, sure." Which I think is the most insane answer, an end to that story, I guess. But yeah, and then 2 weeks later, I had a series of interviews and applied, and then my whole entire life pretty much changed within the matter of like 3 weeks. So,
Wow. That's that's so wow, there's kind of a lot to unpack there because it's
yeah.
interesting that you had the sewing machine.
hmm
Obviously, your family knew it was a driving force in your life.
Yep.
And I appreciate it from one perspective of your dad not pushing you, of like, oh, you got a sewing machine. Here, you could do this. I'm in this industry too. Here you go.
hmm
Because sometimes when it comes at you like that, especially if it's from your parents,
Yeah, of course.
but he just like, yeah, didn't say anything. Like, I don't know. I thought you wanted that, what you were doing. And you're like, no.
And I think that I kind of laughed at that too, but I don't know, he's a really private guy. He's really personable, but he likes to keep to himself and he didn't really talk about his work. And I mean, that's fine and that's great, but um over the past couple of months since he's been back from sick leave, um he just sits there and I watch him put together these outfits and obviously I've seen him for years that he's well dressed, but he just has such a knack for it. And he shared with me that, when he was a little bit younger. He tried to open up his own clothing store. And it's almost like we were ships passing in the night, where I was like, okay, well, we're literally kind of the same person, except you're bald. So
Yeah.
why don't we, do you want to like have lunch? So, but yeah, it was
Get to know your dad day and like take
right.
you to lunch. What else do I not know about him?
Yeah, I get, but I think, parents are wrapped up in being role models and taking care of their own things that they have to do.
Yeah.
So,
That's interesting. So, I mean, I almost feels like because you took to it so naturally, there's almost like a little piece of heredity there in terms of that your dad was doing it, he's amazing at it, very skilled, and that's you were the ones making everybody look good. I love it.
thank you. Yeah,
That's great. I don't want to take up all your time today, and I know we're going to continue this conversation, so
absolutely.
we'll wrap this up and we'll talk more in a little bit.
Okay, that sounds great.